Welcome to the Homeschool High School podcast, brought to you by SevenSistersHomeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. I'm Vicki, and I am here to talk about GPAs on the Homeschool Transcript. So I had some questions recently about it and thought I'd hop on and do a podcast episode about GPAs. So most of us know GPA stands for the grade point average, and most homeschool transcripts are going to need to show a GPA at least at the end of senior year. So why, and how do we do this? And what are the mechanics of GPAs? So it can be very stressful. So the first thing I've got to let you know is there's not one right way to handle GPAs on the homeschool transcript. So what you want to do is to give some thought to how you want to handle the GPAs on your high schoolers' transcripts. Set it down in writing so you don't forget, and then stick with that, through the high school years so you don't have chaos on the transcript. For teens who are not college bound, so they are going right into the military or into the workforce, their GPA isn't as stressful. You may need to have it if they're going to trade school and applying to the military. That will need to show up on the transcript, but it doesn't need to be as stressful as young people who are applying to a more competitive college situation. So we want to kind of look at that. And if you're non-college bound, take a breath and follow along, and then decide how you want to do it. College bound ones, we want to dig in and really make a decision on how you want to handle these GPAs on that homeschool transcript. Okay. All right. So first we want to decide how often to assign GPAs. So again, there's not one right way. By our experience, I would suggest calculating the GPA each year. So at the end of freshman year, you calculate the GPA and record that on your transcript. Start a transcript. Believe me, you'll be happy you did. Start a transcript in ninth grade and calculate that year's GPA. By the way, Seven Sisters Homeschool has an editable transcript form along with a how-to guide. So it coaches you all the way through the transcript process, right there at the Seven Sisters Homeschool store. So I'll put links in the show notes to that. But for today, let's talk about that GPA. All right, so then again, at the end of sophomore year, you calculate that year's GPA and then combine it, take an average GPA for those 2 years. Then again at the end of junior year. And for college bound young people or young people applying during the senior year to military or to trade school, they may need halfway through senior year GPA in some circumstances, especially for those applying to a more competitive college. Very often they will have to send a mid-year senior year GPA, of a transcript with that updated GPA on it. And then again at the end of senior year. So that's my recommendation. Again, we homeschool to do what's best for our kids. So there's not one right way. You do GPAs the way that's best for you and your family. All right. The next question I get all the time, especially for college bound young people, is whether to have a weighted or a non weighted GPA. So they're two different philosophies, and there's not a unified code in the United States. You must do weighted or you must not do weighted. It just is not existing. And so to understand, if you haven't dealt with this yet, a weighted GPA gives more GPA points to courses that are more rigorous. So for us, when our teens did the highest level courses, those level 5 courses, we call them honors courses. they would have the most rigorous course. A weighted course, if they got an A for one of those courses, would be a 4.5. A non-weighted for an A in a rigorous course would be 4.0. And so you can see there's a difference in how many GPA points a young person gets for a more rigorous course. Again, there's not one right way. So parents will ask me, so if I don't weight my kids' courses and then they apply to a competitive college and they're competing against kids who have a weighted GPA, then those kids that with the weighted GPA look better than my kids, even if they had the same grades and did the same coursework. The thing is that colleges know they are comparing apples to oranges. So when their algorithm, when they're looking at transcripts, what they do is they have a formula for comparing weighted and non-weighted GPAs because they know some schools do, some schools don't, some homeschoolers do, some don't. So you pick what's best for you and your teens. And again, there's not one right way. For us, we did not weight any of our kids' GPAs. We did show the level of rigor of their courses on the transcript. So we felt like that was powerful enough for their situation. Excuse me. So what we found is that our kids got into whatever colleges that were in their goals. And so all of our kids had different goals, but in our Seven Sisters community and the young people we've advised, that unweighted GPA never worked against them as long as we were showing the levels of rigor of the courses. And to me, that was much more descriptive, is to show the level of the work they were doing than but again, that's our personal preference. There's not one right way. The next thing you decide is what the lowest passing grade is going to be. All right, so for young people who are not college bound, they may be able to get by with a D on their transcript. And, if that's their level of ability to perform on a certain subject, and that's, passing for your family, then you can put that on the transcript. For our young people, what worked best for us was the lowest passing grade was a C in any of their academic courses. Because what we knew was for us, if they weren't at least getting for us it was a B in their courses, they weren't having mastery of the subject. So they just needed to take that over again next year. So it made an impetus for our kids, knowing they either work hard, find the resources that they needed to get an A or B in their courses, so they didn't have to retake the course. So anyway, the reason why we go into this on the GPA is because in a key on a transcript, you will explain what the lowest passing grade is, and it affects what the overall GPA is. So for those of you guys who are looking at the YouTube version of this episode, you can see on the transcript form that we Seven Sisters use is up in the right upper hand corner, there's a GPA. All right, and the courses, you can see it shows levels. And then there is a key that unfortunately you can't see as well. Oh, there it is. No, I'm sorry. It's up here on the right hand near the GPA, and it talks about the different levels. Then make sure you save your portfolios with the backing up of this in case it is ever asked. So y'all probably heard the stories I tell of young people going into graduate school, for goodness sake, and one of the colleges wanted to know what their transcript was from high school, so and to back that up, which is ridiculous, and it doesn't happen often, but just keep those around for a little while. Okay, all right, so once you know the lowest grade, that helps your teens know how to work so that they get the GPA that they will need. Okay, then you decide how to break down those letter grades. What will an A include? What will a B include? So for us, the lowest A in an assignment would be a 92 or a 93. So the lowest overall grade, in order to get an A on the transcript, they needed to have an average of 92 or 93 according to the course. So it might go up or down 1 point. And we always put that information in the syllabus for each of our teens' core courses. And so, again, if you want to know more about syllabi and course descriptions and things like that, go to Seven Sisters Homeschool. And I'll also put links in the show notes. There's lots of how-tos there. So our lowest B for a lot of courses would be 82 or 83, and the lowest C would be a 72 or a 73. And then that way we know what to assign the GPA numbers for. Now, some people also do not just ABCs, and they will do A minus, B plus, B minus, and on through. And so then they have to break down, lowest A might be a 93, the A minus might be as low as 90, a B plus might be as low as 87. So you decide what is best for your family. For us, we stuck with just A, B's, and C's without the pluses and the minuses for simplicity's sake, because basically we wanted our kids to master material. And so we wanted them to, work on it and learn it well, and not strain at too many gnats there. So we would definitely put this, though, in the course description. That's part of our syllabus. So what that grading scale is going to be. All right. Then once we know what that is, we can start assigning those grade point numbers. So in our case, because we're doing A, B, and C, an A, 92 to 100, is a 4. A B is 82 to 92, and that would be a 3. And C is a 73 to 82. So something around in that ballpark. So that would be a 2. A's 4, B's 3, C's 2. If you're doing A minuses, you might have a 3.6. A B plus might be a 3.4, and so on. So you make your breakdown and then you keep it consistent. Write it down somewhere and keep it consistent. There's not one right way. You do what's best for your teens. All right. So then you decide what courses are going to get those grade point numbers. So you can do that any way you want to. For us, what we usually do for the GPA is do the core courses. So the things that they need by state rules or by college application for graduation. So the English language arts, ELA, the math, social studies, science, world languages. So those things became part of the GPA process. The electives we usually did not include in that. Now, if they were taking an elective that was going towards what their college major would be, we would include that elective because it is showing their ability to do the work at the field of their college major. And sometimes teens don't know that, and early in high school. So we would just stick to the core courses. All right. So then you've got these letters and the numbers. So an A is a 4, a B is a 3, a C is a 2. And the way you do the actual GPA itself is you add up those numbers at the end of each year and take the average. It's a grade point average. So a teen might end up with a 4.0, which meant that they got straight A's for their GPA. So all their courses, they got an A. Or they might have a 3.6, that there weren't all straight A's, but they were doing pretty good. So you want to then make sure that goes on the transcript. So it's just easy, Basic math, yeah, add it up, take the average. That's all there is to it. So it's really not that intimidating. It's just a lot of details and decisions to make up front. And so you just make sure you keep records, keep track of what you're doing, and you will be very happy if you keep each year the transcript updated with that GPA updated. It will pay off somewhere along the line in your stress levels. So, and also you can look back at the end of the year, you and your high schooler, and be proud of the work that they have done and the hard work you have put into their success. So, if you have any questions about transcripts and GPAs, check out Seven Sisters Homeschool for the transcript editable form. It's right there in the store. And then tons of articles. We've got all kinds of blog posts on the how to's there that are just there for you to enjoy. Also, one of the awesomest resources is on Facebook. We have the Seven Sisters Homeschool Facebook group where you can throw questions into the group and not only get our answers, but also all the seventh sisters share and have input. This is how we did it, how we did it. So you can get different viewpoints on different homeschool questions because there's not one right way to homeschool, and we're all in this together to support each other and to really make the most out of these wonderful years homeschooling our high schoolers. So, this has been the Homeschool High School podcast brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. Thank you to Seth Tillman for editing. Send us questions there at the Facebook group. We love to be in there together. All right, we will see you next week.